Hey, everybody. It's spring in the Northern Hemisphere, and oh my goodness, can I feel the shift in energy. And so today I want to talk about the energies of the equinox and of the other seasons and how they relate. If I'm going to be honest, this past winter that's just ended was a tough one for me. We had actually a quite mild winter weather-wise here in my little piece of the world. But in almost every other way, mentally, physically, emotionally, even financially, winter was tough for me. And there have been times that I have felt like I know some of you have because I've talked to you like it was never going to end. Like there was never going to be hope again. And I am so excited to say that I have turned that corner, almost like when you've got some kind of flu and your life becomes just getting through the next moment. And suddenly one day you wake up and you realize you don't feel that heaviness and that weakness and that lack of possibility anymore, that you feel like life can go on. And not to sound too dramatic, but that's kind of how it's felt for me in this particular season. And I'm so grateful for it. And so as I was thinking about doing this recording today, I was reflecting back. And then I remembered an experience that I had recently with a group, a coming together that we had to discuss something that we all were having some issues with. And the conversation started in that time of, this doesn't feel right, and this isn't working, and this is what I don't like, and this is how I feel that isn't, it just isn't right. And what can we do about that? And in the beginning, it didn't feel like there was anything. It felt like it was just a meeting for collecting concerns, which has a heavy energy to it, even though it means that you're looking to do something to solve that. Kind of like I talked about with compassion last week, that when you have compassion for someone, you acknowledge that there is an issue for them, you have sympathy for them, and then you have a desire to change that if you can. So when people come together to talk about concerns, it's because they have a desire to change things. Well, after that experience recently, and then reflecting back over my own past 2 seasons, I was reminded that if we look to nature, we see how it is that spring comes about. Spring is in the lineup of 4 perfectly proportioned seasons. And even though where I live, seasons tend to be not so consistent over a 13-week period, there are still distinct seasons. There are times for different things, and nature shows us that. And at the time of the fall equinox, we're shown that it's time to start releasing the things that are no longer working for us. When the leaves on the trees turn brown and fall, they're no longer doing the work for the tree to bring energy in from the sun to sustain the growth of the tree. And so they're released. And then when winter comes and the tree goes dormant, it's a time for rest. It's a time for a slower pace. And even though trees do still grow in winter, they don't grow with the speed that they do in the spring or the summer. And so as human beings, the fall is a time for us to release. It's also a time for us to acknowledge abundance, to gather in the harvest, to be grateful. But it's a lot about releasing those things that are past. And as psychological beings, we sometimes don't like doing that. If something's been working for us, we don't like to see it go. And then winter coming causes us to really dig deep and settle into our roots, to go into our internal spaces, to reflect to go into silence, to kind of mull over what those things are that have been released, who we are at our deepest being. And that's definitely where I went this winter. The wonderful thing about that is if we do the work of the winter season, then we get the reward of spring. And for spring, at the spring equinox, it's about balance. It's about bringing more growth. It's about transcendence. It's about new beginnings. And as I reflect on my own life and what's been happening for me in this particular round of the seasons, and I think about that group that I met with recently, I realize that there's great sorrow around the endings of things. Sometimes even things that we choose to end, things that we choose to make complete in our life, we still go into somewhat of a mourning period of sorrow. We move from a job that we've chosen to leave to go to a job that we've decided will be better for us in some way. But there's also sorrow at the ending of that previous job. But this is what I realized recently in my work with the group that I was working with. Once we're able to completely release those things that are dead and gone, those dead leaves that can't bring new life, and once we go through that process of reflecting back and going deep into our inner spaces to find our own inner light as we connect to divine source, then we're ready for spring. It gives us the energy and the strength that we need. It makes those past things complete. When we try to hang on to what's dead and gone, when we try to pass over that work of connecting back into who we truly are and to the source of our power, our connection to our inner guidance and divine source, if we try to skip over that, or we try to hold on to what's no longer viable, we don't have the energy to move forward. We can't see the new beginning. And so as I look at nature outside my window today, and I see the red buds blooming, and I know that they were dormant during the winter. Prior to that, in the fall, their leaves turned brown and yellow and they dropped to the ground. It's a beautiful, inspiring reminder to me not to be afraid to let go of things that have passed. Because if I do hold on to those, I may never see the hope of the future. So that's what I've got to say today. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you back next week. I hope you have a transcendent spring equinox. Bye now.